Hey everyone, John Lorden here with a bit of a different type of episode of BrainScratch. Let me just be clear right from the start here. Media has been trying to terrify you. If you're a parent, the mass media and social media and the middle media, all between that, have been trying to terrify you with this whole Momo thing. And there are so many problems with this story. The way it's being perpetuated. There's problems even in the story if you actually listen to what it is and what people are describing it as. But what media is doing with it is really, really sick. And that's part of the reason why I'm not even going to monetize today's video, not to mention the fact that I have to use the S word that YouTube seems to find as an automatic trigger for demonetizing me, suicide, which is part of the Momo challenge and the threat around the Momo challenge. So we're going to get into all that. Honestly, this is the third time I've tried to film this because I'm getting so worked up as I'm going through the articles that for this version, I don't think I'm going to go through those initial articles. We're just going to jump into what I think is really important, and that is what are the true concerns that are going on around this? How do we address those concerns? What is making this happen? And can we keep an eye out for not letting that get to us in the future? Before we start with all that, I want to make a very special announcement. You know, I've had several fans recently or in the past mention that, hey, you know, John seems like a really nice guy, the type of guy I just want to go have a beer with and, you know, talk about cases and stuff like that. And I've had some events in the past. It's been a really long time where I've kind of met up with some people and we've done a little bit of that. But we've got a really special event coming up, and that's CrimeCon. And I have been finally confirmed to be at CrimeCon. Danielle Hallen is also going to be there. We're going to be representing Crime After Crime, of course. And Mike Morford is going to be there, who's one of my co-hosts on 3 Men and a Mystery. It's if you're into true crime, it's the event that you want to be at. And I really want you to be there. So if you use coupon code CrimeAfterCrime19 to get a standard pass for CrimeCon, and if you're one of the first 10 people to use that, you're going to get a whole bunch of free stuff, including a shirt, and that shirt is going to be your invite to a special event where you can come and hang out with Danielle and myself for an hour. We're going to buy the first round if you want a beer, or if you don't drink, you want a soda. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk about cases. We're going to take selfies, whatever you guys want to do. So if that sounds interesting to you, I've got a video in the description box below with all the details, how you can use the coupon, where you're supposed to use the coupon, what do you do after that to make sure that you're part of that first 10 group, what are you going to get with all that stuff. We've even got some surprises we're kind of cooking in terms of what you're going to get with that. So if that sounds interesting, please check out the video down below. Come out to New Orleans in June, spend time at CrimeCon, and hopefully you'll be hanging out with us on top of that. Sound good? All right, let's get to this Momo challenge thing. So starting at Wikipedia, but in an interesting spin, this is actually Wikipedia from yesterday. I know, sounds weird. The Momo challenge is an alleged form of cyberbullying that spreads through social media and cell phones. After phone users are enticed to contact a user named Momo, they receive graphic threats from the user and are instructed to perform a series of dangerous tasks, including and up to ending their own life and filming that to be put on social media. Reports on and awareness of the alleged challenge rose in February 2019. So I've watched all kinds of videos on this. I've tried to find the source of where this all started. Essentially, the image that shows up here that they've kind of tastefully and thankfully cropped for Wikipedia, this is an art project that I believe happened in Japan. And let me just pull up another source so I can be clear about this real quick. Yeah, over at What's Trending, it's actually a sculpture that appeared in an art exhibition in Japan called Ghost Gallery 3 Jasper in the Underworld in 2016. It's an intentionally creepy ghost-like creature with bird legs. So the legend portion of this story is this Momo character is on social media, reaches out to your children gets in contact with Momo, and then Momo starts harassing them, sending them disgusting images, and challenging them. And if they don't perform the challenge tasks, Momo threatens that their family will be cursed or possibly their family may be harmed. Now, I've seen a few different videos on this. One of them showed a guy that supposedly called one of these numbers and was able to reach Momo, and Momo began harassing him and he got really scared. I personally feel like that video was completely faked. This is like creepypasta territory on the internet. There's another YouTuber named Rainbot that actually did a video on this back in July of 2018. Her coverage, I was really surprised by, because when I first saw her channel, I'm like, uh-oh, here's a creepy storytelling channel. And you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of that. But she really did a good job looking into this, trying to get to the truth of the matter. First of all, she identified this is a piece of art. And she tried to call the numbers herself. She got no response, and she was very clear that she thinks this is just an urban legend. Well, fast forward to February of 2019, we have an officer in Northern Ireland, I believe, that releases a post on Facebook, and it seems like that post kind of goes viral, and he's saying that Momo is actually a front for hackers that are trying to get personal information from children, and that he's seen all these graphic videos and things that are happening to people all over the place. I have looked every which way trying to find the actual versions of these videos, or even people just giving good descriptions of them. I can't. You've got major news sources running all over this with, you've got like Fox, you've got CBS, and just thumping this drum of parents protect your children. You got to know what your children are doing online, because Momo is telling them to harm themselves, and Momo wants them to blow up your house, and Momo's going to tell them to leave the gas on while you're in bed in the middle of the night. It's, in one way, it's kind of embarrassing to me, because these articles, even the way they're written, you can tell there is absolutely no fact checking going on. You can tell they're not trying to roll back to the sources to understand what's really going on here. And you've just got this legend that is blowing out of control. Now, do I expect this for the social media space? Do I expect that some YouTube channels that want to do creepy content are going to do stuff like this? Yes, absolutely. We've covered things like that on this channel before. Do I expect those types of things to hit mainstream media and have them run around and promote this wacky urban legend? No, not at all. And it's kind of interesting, because I've been really looking into it heavily. It's been about 3 days now. And at the start, the articles were very focused in one particular direction, which was kind of just spreading this legend. Then over the course of yesterday, I saw that some retractions were starting. Things were starting to change a little bit. And then to today, where you have almost this second run of articles that are coming out where they're like, we think it's a hoax now. There was all these aspects of, there was children that had ended their own lives in other parts of the world, and we're now finding that we can't get confirmation from the police departments that that is actually the case. There essentially have been no confirmed linkage of Momo to any child actually harming themselves. So remember how we started this video on yesterday's Wikipedia? Here's today's Wikipedia. The Momo challenge is a hoax internet challenge. Despite claims that the phenomenon had reached worldwide proportions, the number of actual complaints was relatively small, and no police force has confirmed that anyone was harmed as a direct result of the phenomenon. I even tried to look into some of the specific cases that are being cited as being related to this. The closest that I could find to any connection is family members stating they think there's a connection. We have nothing for officials coming forward. There are stories you can find that look like they're on credible sources that say, hey, the police hacked into this kid's phone and they found Momo, and they found the WhatsApp application, and they found communication there where Momo was. You can find stories that are saying that, but you cannot find cited sources. And those stories, there's other publications coming out now saying those stories are essentially false. I do believe that there are a number of young people that have ended their lives, and I do think that aspect is real. in these stories. I know it is because I've looked into some of them, but the connection to this Momo thing, not. And then there's this other aspect to Momo, that Momo is breaking through on YouTube, through kids' YouTube, in the middle of Peppa Pig and in the middle of Minecraft videos and Roblox videos, and is telling your child to harm themselves, or that in those videos there's some instruction. Well, there's actually two aspects I've seen. There's one of them where in that video is some instruction for how your child can contact Momo, which, once again, I can't find any confirmation of. And if anyone knew what the contact mechanism was for Momo, I'm pretty sure that mechanism would be shut down. WhatsApp has even said that, it's really easy for us to take out numbers. And if we know that a number is being a particular problem and it's reported, that's going to be shut down. But then there's another aspect to the YouTube videos where there's this story that Momo is actually breaking through these YouTube videos and telling your child how to harm themselves. And if you do just a little bit of research beyond that initial little press bite, you'll find that there is actually a real article from a mother that did find something that was a bit concerning. This is from CBS News. Horrified mom discovers suicide instructions in video on YouTube and YouTube Kids. Video promoting self-harm tips spliced between clips of a popular video game has surfaced at least twice on YouTube and YouTube Kids since July, according to a pediatrician and mom who discovered the video. The suicide instructions are sandwiched between clips from the popular Nintendo game Splatoon and delivered by a man speaking in front of what appears to be a green screen, an apparent effort to have him blend in with the rest of the animated video. Remember, kids, sideways for attention, long ways for results, the man says, mimicking cutting motions on his forearm. End it. The man featured is YouTuber Filthy Frank, who has over 6.2 million subscribers and calls himself the embodiment of everything a person should not be, although there is no evidence that Frank, whose real name is George Miller, was involved in creating the doctored video. He did not immediately respond to CBS News' request for comment. So I did see a version of that video, and I think is that message something that you want to see pop up in a kid's video? No, absolutely not. But taking that and citing it as a way of promoting self-harm, or self-harm tips in particular, is a little bit of a leap for me. I'm not saying it's good humor, but there are numerous videos on YouTube that make that particular quote. And by the way, Filthy Frank is not the first person to come up with that quote. I've been hearing that quote since like the 80s, and I'm sure it even predates that. Among circles of certain types of senses of humor, that quote does come up, kind of thrown out in a little bit of a joking fashion. Do I personally think it's a great joke? No. Not at all. Is it something I want seeing in the middle of a kid's video? No, not at all. But describing that it's in the middle of a Splatoon video, which essentially is Nintendo's version of a shooter. They're doing it with paint, so it's obviously not hyper violent, but it's still competitive. And seeing that there's a message where someone comes in and is essentially telling you to die or to end your life in some way, the context of that message is different in a competitive video game video. If you've played online at all, you've probably heard people tell you to kill yourself before. If you've played in an open arena with open communication. Once again, I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying it certainly happens for some people's senses of humor. That is not the same to me as someone breaking through a video in the middle of Peppa Pig and telling your kid, go to the kitchen, open the drawer, find the sharpest knife. It's just the way it's being presented in these articles. And by the way, this woman has just gone completely viral with this too. And this is being attached to this whole Momo thing in a very bizarre way, where news outlets are just combining it and saying, no, it's Momo that's breaking through and telling your kid how to harm themselves. It's not. It's Filthy Frank. I don't know, guys. My brain is just melting all over all this, because what is really going on here? Families are being terrified. But is it by something real? Is it by Momo, who, by the way, is now like a meme? I mean, this Momo character first kicked out in July of 2018. It's viralized. So you have real content that's being generated with Momo being incorporated in that content that has absolutely nothing to do with this supposed challenge or this game or any of that. There is just legit Momo content now. So does that mean anytime someone bumps into one of those things that a parent's going to see that and think, oh my God, they're playing that game? And if you wanted to almost choreograph something to terrorize people, it's like this is the perfect thing. Take a meme, which kids are always looking at, take a popular image from a meme and scare any parents that see that image. Just the mechanics of that, even if there is no real threat, the mechanics of that are a whirlwind of attention. And that's kind of what we've been seeing going on here today. And it's kind of nutty. Now, we have YouTube that's kind of in the middle of all this, and they have made a comment recently. Let me just go ahead and open that for you guys. They've made a few comments on this. First of all, they said, we want to clear something up regarding the Momo challenge. We have seen no recent evidence of videos promoting the Momo challenge on YouTube. Videos encouraging harmful and dangerous challenges are against our policies. If you see videos including harmful or dangerous challenges on YouTube, we encourage you to flag them to us immediately. These challenges are clearly against our community guidelines. More info here, and I will have that link in the description box below. And let me just tell you, as a YouTuber, in a space where I sometimes talk about tough issues, they're all over me. One word in my video gets that video demonetized. So to think that they would let something like this go, dangerous content in this way, there's no way. Could it possibly slip by their systems? Sure. But are they going to let it go after that initial report? I'm telling you, with how tough they are on me, not a chance, not a chance at all. So what's really going on here, and what can we do about it? I think there's an aspect to this that ties into technophobia. And here is an article at Very Well Mind. Technophobia is a fear related to the loss of control. Technophobia is surprisingly common. In fact, some experts believe that we all suffer at least a small amount of nervousness when confronted with new technology. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but there's more information here that we essentially have generational issues that are going on. You know, I didn't grow up with the internet. The internet really hit popularity after I was already out of high school. So for me to even hear about this type of situation, sure, it's scary. I have a really young nephew, and I see that he goes to kids' YouTube, and I see that he watches videos all over the place. And they're Minecraft and Roblox videos, two of the types of videos that are mentioned here. And let me just take a little bit of a brief detour. There's one creator I saw on YouTube in particular that is a Roblox channel. And for some reason, he did a whole video on this Momo thing. I watched it. And then at the end of the video, he's asking people not to subscribe because he's basically just there for doing Roblox. So why did you do a Momo video at all? Because don't you realize kids are going to come watch your Roblox video, and in the list of recommended, your Momo video is going to pop up? It's really bizarre to me. Some people just seem to really not be thinking when it comes to this, and especially even on the major media front. Why are we perpetuating this theory? We're making the urban legend bigger. I even debated if I should talk about this today, but I do think there's a really important aspect to all this. So we've got this technophobia angle. We have parents that know this is not something I had to deal with when I was a kid. We've got that screen moving closer and closer. I mean, look at this guy. How far is the screen from his face? You know, when I was younger, we had a TV in the house. And if I was watching that TV, there was probably someone else in the room. The number of screens we have now is just completely different. And they're moving closer and closer to our face. The other aspect that would sometimes maybe help a parent in terms of monitoring is if you were watching something on TV, the audio would be there. If your mom was cooking in the kitchen, she'd have a good idea of what you're watching if she just gave it a listen. Now, with that screen moving closer and closer to our face and people engaging multiple screens in the same room, what's becoming more common? Headphones. So for parents that are really concerned, that want to try to get in between that tiny little space you have between your child and the device they're using to consume this content, make sure headphones aren't part of the equation. Make sure you can hear what's going on there. If you hear all of a sudden this creepy character jump on there and is describing to your child they need to leave the gas on in the middle of the night while you're sleeping, I think that's going to catch your attention. But on top of that, there are other tools. I mean, that's kind of part of what Kids YouTube is built for. They're trying to weed out adult content and make sure there's a safe place for kids to be there. Your cell phone providers have tools you can look into. There are additional services that you can buy to add to phones. You can monitor what your kids are watching. There's certainly a very big aspect of this where you want to be concerned with what they're doing online. Does that mean that you can hang over their shoulder and literally watch everything that's going on? No. And remember, all the things that we have as fears in this world come into play online. I mean, essentially, online is a representation of what's going on in the real world, but it's a window to it from wherever you're sitting. So, for me, when I was a kid, stranger danger was this big thing, and they wanted to make sure that kids knew we shouldn't talk to strangers and we should try to run away if people approach us. And we had all these rules about how we're to engage with people. We kind of need a similar mechanism like that now, but for kids to understand that when they're engaging people online. This whole Momo thing, even if the urban legend, the start of this urban legend is true, that there's some guy that had 3 numbers on WhatsApp and he was receiving calls and sending disturbing messages to people, it was still a person. It was still a stranger. The basics of this still apply. Your kids should know, I shouldn't be texting phone numbers I don't know. I shouldn't be reaching out to people in that way. But it's also tough because you have technology that's moving things in a different direction. When you're playing online with a bunch of other people and everyone's talking, you don't know those people. And could they still cyberbully? Could they still harass you? Yeah. Could they say some really awful things that make you feel bad? Yeah. But there needs to be some level of understanding there too that, I'm not going to take it personally when someone says that I should go kill myself because I'm bad at Halo 5 or something like that. And as an adult, sure, it's really easy for me to understand that. As a child that's first getting into that, or hearing racist remarks or sexual content, are you going to understand how to deal that when all of a sudden you're being thrown into a public forum when you're sitting on your couch next to your parents and everyone's plugged into their devices? There's a lot of aspects to think about here, and let's continue it. Let's see what else I can dig up in terms of trying to understand this. So technophobia is one potential small aspect of this, but I don't think that is all that there is to it, particularly with what I saw go on this week with this particular story. Moral panic is a feeling of fear spread among a large number of people that some evil threatens the well-being of society. A dictionary of sociology defines a moral panic as the process of arousing social concern over an issue, usually the work of moral entrepreneurs and the mass media. So I think we've got a combination of the technology gap that parents are facing, just understanding their kids are facing things that they weren't, and a little bit of this moral panic aspect where all of a sudden people we look to are telling us we have to be careful of this boogeyman that's on our kids' cell phones. And even outside of the mass media, we have police organizations making comments about this Momo challenge, telling people that they have to be safe. So in one way, I understand. I think media should be held to a little bit of a higher standard in terms of just because you have a cop somewhere that says, hey, I saw these videos and they're really creepy, doesn't mean that you should necessarily run with that as a story. Do a little digging, maybe reach out to that officer and say, hey, where'd you see those videos exactly? We're doing a piece on this. We want to raise awareness. I'm sure if he really wanted to help, he's going to send links to those videos or let that person, that news reporter know, okay, here's where you can go find that stuff. But we don't really have that happening in this case at all. It just looks like the media just completely ran with this. And last time I looked, there's like millions of hits in terms of Momo as a search term. But remember, this is a thing that was viralized. This is a thing that has been memed and is part of young culture already. So I did find some more information over at WILX.com. Preemptively addressing something with your kid is always better, said Dr. Megan Walls, a pediatric psychologist. She says it might be a good idea to gently ask your younger kids if they know about this. Now, some experts are saying to actually not ask your kids specifically about Momo because it's actually going to pique their curiosity and increase their awareness. And I have seen some examples, some screenshots of people on Facebook who are talking about, oh, I talked to my kid about Momo and my 6-year-old, and they were crying like crazy and hysterical. I think you should be really, really cautious about Momo as a particular topic, but talking to them about online safety and strangers and contact with people you don't know, that seems like common sense to me. Something like, there's some scary things that pop up on phones and tablets, and if you ever see something like that, come get me. As for your older kids, maybe get them to promise they'll talk to you about the Momo challenge if it's sent to them. It's not realistic to simply take their phone away, but let them know this is cyberbullying, it's potentially dangerous, and that you're trusting them to let you know what's going on. Especially as kids get older and they are teenagers, they want some of that autonomy, and they deserve it as long as they can show you they're responsible enough, Walls said. Now, in terms of full disclosure, look, I am not a parent. These concerns are something I don't deal with on a day-to-day basis. I understand that being a parent is a very difficult, tricky, one of the hardest jobs that you'll ever have in your life. I'm just trying to share information with you guys in terms of details that I found that I think relate to what I saw happen this week. And I don't like seeing people a mass hysteria, which is kind of what I feel like happened this week. And despite the fact that I've seen other YouTubers trying to talk sense about this, even Rainbot back in July was trying to talk sense about this topic and to get people to calm down. The amount of media points driving the fear has so far exceeded the common sense talk. I thought it was important to put another beam of light out there, just trying to shine it on this issue, trying to get people to realize, look, there are some legitimate concerns we need to talk about with this conversation, but a freaky looking bird lady that's part of a Japanese art exhibit is not necessarily one of them. There's another aspect to this. I found an article at desertnews.com. When fear drives parenting, what happens to the kids? On a recent late-night autumn day in Draper, Utah, psychologist Lynn Johnson and his son Chris watched with delight as two of Johnson's young granddaughters flew across his yard on a zip line. When Johnson first became a parent a few decades ago, he was fearful. He and his wife had seen news stories about child abductions, and he wanted above all to keep his kids safe. Around 1992, he saw research showing the advantages of cultivating optimism and decided that was the philosophy he would consciously embrace as a dad. It's hard to be optimistic and live fearfully simultaneously. As he became more optimistic, he said, I overcame my fear and I believe my children benefited. I personally shifted my own attitude, and with a risk-embracing parenting style, the children also shifted toward optimism. The American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy published a report by family therapist Lisa Pisha that notes children naturally have their own fears, which can be compounded when a parent is fearful. Studies show that our acquisition of fears and their negative influence is determined by what our parents have modeled for us. We learn how to handle fear and what to be afraid of from our family. The impacts the report notes include more time indoors, isolation, avoidance, and depression, among others. Our generation of parents is riddled with fear. Imagine the message this sends to the young. The world is evil. Don't take any risks. Never trust anyone, he said. It's enough to produce the most anxious population of American teens to date. A 2013 study in the Journal of Child and Family Studies found overprotective or helicopter parents thwart a child's basic psychological need for autonomy and competence, resulting in more depression and lower life satisfaction levels. Just some really interesting facts. And when you think about this, we're all human beings. We've already been wired with our own set of fears. To have parents just retweeting and resending and Facebook posting this information back at each other, back and forth, having these conversations with their kids, I just really want everyone to just take a moment and think about that. How is that fear going to play out? And I know on my channel, we talk about a lot of situations that as parents, you should be fearful of. We cover cases here where children go missing or even worse. I understand that, but does that mean that we can keep our kids in the bubble, as we used to say, and protect them from everything in the world? No. And does being fearful actually help protect them? Being fearful? No. Fear is usually a very paralyzing thing. So if we're layering and adding to the existing fear that we were already born with, we're actually locking our kid up more from being able to handle some of these situations that they might be facing. Here's another good example. When he was little, therapist David Rout's dad told them spiders were everywhere and there are some spider bites that kill. While he got the boys to stop playing in the basement, it's unlikely he anticipated the long-term impact this story had on his children. That is all it took for us to be scared the rest of our lives of spiders. I had a terrible phobia for many years and had to use some drastic approaches to overcome it. Now I am a counselor, and I can tell you that using these extreme ways of explaining reasons for caution are less than helpful. There are spiders that can kill you, but learning all the information necessary to make a rational choice about the risk, that is most beneficial. The same concept can be applied to other topics that involve caution, such as the risk of strangers, he said. Telling a child they shouldn't go up to strangers because they will get kidnapped and sold into child slavery is probably not the best option. Telling a child that some people are not nice to children and we need to get to know them before we give them our trust is much more helpful and will have much less damaging effects. And before we end this, I got one other interesting aspect about parental fears and technology, and can they actually affect your child's career choice? This is from Forbes. It's parental fears, not technology, that's putting our children's future careers at risk. It's not technology that's the biggest threat to our children's future careers. It's their parents' fear of technology. For while children are eager to embrace the possibilities of a career in tech, their parents are actively trying to steer them away because they fear for their child's online safety, according to a new survey. Almost half, 49% of children are dreaming of a career in tech, according to a survey carried out by communications giant O2. Top picks for tech careers include vlogger, animator, software developer, web designer, and coder. I don't know if I consider vlogger a tech career. I mean, I know there's technical aspects to it, but as things get more simple going into the future, I don't think people will think of that as a tech career. More than 3/4, 77% of the 2,000 young people they surveyed said they thought digital skills will be vital to success in their future careers. I think that number is actually kind of low. I'm surprised that close to 100% didn't think that. Just from what I've seen over the course of my life, things are getting technical in every aspect. I don't think there's any job that you can have where there isn't some technical component to it, outside of vlogger, like I just mentioned. But their parents do not display the same approach to technology, nor the same faith in their children's ability to navigate the undoubted pitfalls it presents. A parallel survey of 2,000 parents found that just 11% said they encourage their children to use tech as a way of developing skills or expressing their creativity. And while 3/4 asked their children what they did at school, just over 1/3 asked the same questions about their children's online behavior. That is a very telling statistic, and that I don't think that those numbers should flip necessarily. I just think that the number of parents asking about children's online behavior needs to increase dramatically. To know that the majority of kids are not having that conversation with their parents, and then we have things like happened this week, that's pretty scary. These findings suggest that while schools have work to do to encourage students to consider careers in tech, their real audience should be the parents. And it also shows that there could be some more time, I think, put into educational programs for helping kids online. Not that that needs to be the responsibility of the schools, but I think anything that helps address this problem is probably a good idea. So, wow, Momo really put me through it this week. This was one of the hardest episodes that I have filmed in a long, long time. And it's hard because I see so many people being affected by something that within a matter of days has pretty much come out to be a hoax. I see mass media that is not necessarily reflecting that. There's still stories that are coming out that are trying to push that hoax. A few are making corrections to it. I've seen just one instance where the original article, and I'll call it out, Newsweek, they actually modified their original article to put in place that it seems like it's a hoax and that none of the associations with the true tragedies that have happened to these families around the world have been connected to Momo. But all in all, kind of a disappointing feeling I have about a lot of publications that I rely on for a lot of the work that I do here on the channel. And I hope that you guys found this helpful. It's kind of, I think, the best approach that I could have taken with this is trying to shift the dialogue and move the conversation out of the urban legend and towards the realities of it and some of the challenges of it. I don't propose to have the solutions, but I think I'm pretty good at trying to find the questions. It's kind of what I do here. Hope you guys feel the same. Let's talk about this in the comments down below. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys can share with each other about your stories and your safety, how you keep your families safe. Before we go, I want to share a little bit of a personal story with you guys that I think kind of relates to this, because especially the aspect of thinking that, you know, your kid is watching some kid-friendly content and all of a sudden in the middle of that content, something is reaching out that could be potentially damaging to them. I had a family friend, and I wasn't quite a teenager. I'd say I was probably 11 or 12 when this happened, but I had a younger brother and sister, and this friend would come over, an adult friend, hang out with my parents. They had children as well. And they would get all the kids together and kind of set up the television as the virtual babysitter while the adults would all go somewhere and, you know, play cards at home, but just in a different room. And I was a little too old to be hanging out with the kids, especially when they were watching, I think it was one of the Muppet movies. And don't get me wrong, I love the Muppet movies, but, you know, when you're 12, you're kind of on to other things. And at one point, the adults were asking me, hey, you know, Johnny, go visit the kids and make sure they're okay. It got awful quiet in there. And I went in and I saw that the children were watching pornography. Yeah, essentially this videotape that had the Muppet movie on it had been recorded over a tape that formerly had pornography on it. So when the Muppet movie ended, it rolled right into what used to be on the tape. That story applies the same to what I'm seeing going on here. It's one of those things. You have to have some mechanism of being sure someone is being responsible for what your children are consuming. And is it something you can do on a second-to-second basis? No. Are there steps that you could take to be safer about it? Not allowing headphones, limiting how much time, potentially using services on the devices, looking for additional software that can help you with that, learning more about your router, or is there some type of network monitoring you can do to make sure you know what services your child is accessing? There is information out there, and I want to reach out to you guys, the audience, and ask that you please share that in the comments below with each other so that you can help each other's families be more safe. And watch out for versions of the Muppet movie. Man, it was the most shocking thing. I was like, why are those kids being so quiet? And of course, none of them came out to tell us what had popped on the television. Anyway, I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Thank you so much for enduring this little bit different brain scratch. And once again, I hope you found it helpful, or at least interesting, because it's the best I could do with this topic. This is just... Anyway, I'll see you back here on Monday with a bit of a special case cracked. Going to be a little bit longer than usual. Really interesting, detailed case. And I hope you'll be back to check it out here on the Lord and Arts channel.